I'm Curtis Ashby, and I'm a mural artist and graphic designer. I paint mostly with spray paint and acrylics on large format murals, as well as small canvases, wood blocks, stuff like that. In middle school, skateboarding was a huge thing, and I was totally drawn by skateboard art, bold imagery, the graphics, and that really started getting me to think, like, I want to make stuff like that. And so I started doing art classes and just developing skills and making art that I liked and wanted to see out in the world. From there, my house and my room had canvases all over the place with art that I've made. That was kind of what I found that I loved doing, so I was just doing it all the time. Having a studio space with natural light and texture on the walls really feels like it's putting me back into nature in a way, and that's what inspires me most. I want to create work that brings in the surroundings that I'm in, and when I'm creating, I want to feel like I'm comfortable and in a nice, warm place to be in, and that's when I can create the best. So I feel like this studio space for me is a great place to create that type of work that is quality to me. So when I first stepped into this house and saw the studio space for the first time, before it was my studio, I knew that I had to have this home and create my art studio in this space. It just kind of clicked in that moment. I've always been attracted to the mid-century modern look that just has that natural, original character. The home has been cared for immensely. I felt like we would be great caregivers to the house and respect the space and just continue to use that creative, loving energy that I felt was already in the home, and it would be a great place for me to create art too. I hope that my art has an impact on people in the way that they get inspired just to go out and experience nature. One side of the art that I create is about the art, but it's also my way of bringing awareness to the animals and nature and the wetlands and just the nature around us. And you don't have to get in a car and drive to the mountains or to the ocean to see this amazing wildlife. It's right here in our city, and I just want to share that with people.
The Black Lives Matter mural is a public art project. It's on Tollefson Plaza, which is a public plaza sort of in the heart of downtown Tacoma. And it's an interesting space. It's kind of an amphitheater, so it has stairs wrapping around, 2/3 of it, and the mural's on the stairs.
The Black Lives Matter mural project is a project to create a mural in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. And it also represents Black culture and the community in Tacoma.
For me, the BLM project is about honoring our past and speaking up in the present. It's recognizing the sacrifices that have been made in our community, speaking to the history of our country and to the people, the African descendants of slaves and people in this area, the different trials and tribulations, and also our power and our triumph in overcoming. Because of our history, it's very uncomfortable for some people to talk about our experience or to acknowledge what's happened. And I think a lot of times in American culture, we do kind of this pretending or glossing over issues. We rely on things being clean or pristine or perfect in order for them to be considered good. And I think that there's a lot of good things that have a past of pain or a past that's not beautiful. And I think learning how to embrace that and embrace ourselves and each other, I think it's good for everybody. Because I think everyone has points of pain and they have ways that they can relate to each other or have experienced trauma. And I think erasing that trauma or not acknowledging it doesn't help anyone. So to me, it's an opportunity for our voices to be heard, for our stories to be told without shame, and for our community to be honest and really begin healing. Like, until you acknowledge that there's a problem in the first place, it's very difficult to find healing. So I think for me, Black Lives Matter is about healing. It's about acknowledgement, and it's about love and learning how to love each other and love ourselves.
It was a really amazing partnership and also a really good learning experience for us, because we have been talking for a while as a museum. A lot of museums are really realizing that they can't just be this little sort of capsule alone, that they really, if they're going to say that they're part of their community and they represent their community, they need to be out there in the community and not just expect people to come to them. And so we have a number of outreach programs that take our art and programs into the community, but this was a really new and interesting way to be part of that. So it was a great opportunity to contribute to something that's going to be permanent and in the community, but that's also, right across the street from us, and is already kind of being wrapped into some of our educational programming too.
When I was accepted to do this project, I really thought about what my life is about and what my community is about, and what this movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, was about. And so I tried to combine them both, because it really is about representing equality and justice for all, but it's specifically reaching into a community that has been on the wrong end of the law, right? At times, that have lost their lives because of police brutality. And so I really wanted to tell the story of my community through this mural. And I wanted to look at our past and how we tell stories. And so when you stand in front of the mural, there's a young woman, there's a young boy, there's a sort of middle-aged man, and then there's an elder. And then there's a woman, a quilter in the back. And that area of the mural represents to me the Black community and our soul and our heart, our struggle and our fight for justice and equality. And I wanted there also to be a lightness and a joy in the work. And so that area right there really represents the light, that hope and that longing for just being, right? Just having joy and living our lives and being within our communities. And so when you continue to walk left, you'll begin to see different words that are in the mural and a quilt pattern that basically covers the whole space. So as you continue to walk to the left side, you'll see a crowd of people and they're holding up signs. And so I wanted to embed these words because really when you think about the Black Lives Matter movement, this movement was about communication. And it was about making a statement through social media and about making a statement in your lives, physically getting out of your house, joining together with a group of people to say, enough is enough. We're not going to see another person murdered at the hands of those that should be our protectors. So it ends with that scene of protest, and you see that happening still today. I mean, I think we're going to always be protesting because we always do want to say something, right? And we should be able to. That's our right as citizens.
My favorite thing, I think that it's still there, is her bumblebee. But I really like that she wanted people to understand that our perspectives are different. Sometimes you have to be willing to move in order to understand somebody else's perspective. I really like when art is interactive and it kind of pushes you to shift your perspective to understand it. So I like that piece of it a lot as well.
What you see before you really is an opportunity for the Tacoma City Council to visually show our support of our anti-racist work when we unanimously voted yes on Resolution 40622, which has an excerpt right here in this plaza.
I hope that the community is able to connect to the work. I hope that when they see the art, that it challenges them. I hope that they're willing to change their perspective in order to build the community and to strengthen the connections that we have with each other. I hope that it makes people uncomfortable in some ways. I hope that they pause and they think about it, and they, maybe even if it makes them angry, that they navigate that and they understand, why do I feel this way? Or they ask questions of themselves.
I like that the BLM mural is going to be this continuous reminder of these problems in our society. And I just think it's a really important message that people see every day, that remind them that racism exists, that discrimination exists, and that it takes daily work to try and change those ways of being and those ways of acting toward people. And so I think it's really, I hope that for Tacoma it just becomes a sort of daily reminder of kind of being better people and living in different ways and thinking about different ways of being in our community.
My name is Trenton Quiocho, and I'm a glass artist. Very open-ended saying you're a glass artist because there's many different ways that you can work with the material. I primarily am a glass blower, which means I make blown vessels, vases, functional things, and I'm also a glass sculptor. I mix those two together. So there's many different techniques and ways to work with the material. A lot of my concepts and designs have changed over time, and more recently I have been inspired by my Filipino heritage and identity and just Filipino culture in general. My grandfather was a huge influence on me, learning my family history through the stories he would tell. He grew up on Kauai and worked on a plantation. And so being inspired by the cicadas and the manongs and a lot of the Filipino farm workers that immigrated here, that's empowering for me to try to create works based on their stories. So a lot of my inspiration with my culture, it's difficult for me to find source materials, and so a lot of it comes from books. There's not any family alive that can give me that information. And so I think a lot of my work right now, it's based off of what I see out of those books. And I think when I create the works, I hope that it creates, for the viewers, you know, it creates some sort of dialogue for them to question that. But I also hope that it's a starting point for me, and I see hopefully that my work evolves and is more not copying those previous works, but hopefully it creates a foundation for me to create new works of future artifacts, you know, inspired by past cultures. The risk of it drew me into it. We all make mistakes, and I think it's what you do with your mistakes. And that's what I'm an artist and an educator, and I always tell my students that things are gonna break, but it's what you do with that and how you bounce back. All the mistakes that I've made and my persistence with, you know, coming back and doing it again has got me to where I'm at today. As an artist, you're constantly learning, and to be proficient in any art, you have to be a student. You're using different elements such as water and wood and fire to create art. I'm always a student to the material, and I'm always learning. I enjoy being an artist and an educator. I love working with glass as a medium. I love the teamwork and camaraderie that comes with it. A lot of other mediums don't necessarily work in a team environment, and so What really keeps me engaged is working with others in the hot shop. It brings joy and a sense of pride to see my former students down here today helping me, and to see what they're doing in their own lives and their careers is also very fulfilling for me as an educator. And I'm excited to see what lies ahead in this upcoming year.
My name is Garcia. I also go by Smoky Wonder, and my art form is sound art. Music is a passion of mine. I also enjoy doing visual arts. And yeah, you could call it DJing, you could call it beat making. It's really just a big combination of things. I just love traditional hip-hop, free-form DJing. So many great inspirations and historical figures to draw from there, from Kool Herc to Africa Bambaataa to Grandmaster Flash. So there's just a million amazing DJs out there. It's even hard to sometimes talk to friends or family unless they know about DJing, because I could really go off for hours on, certain styles and people. DJing itself is just a big inspiration, and that turns into a lifetime of music exploration for me. Being in my studio, I feel like it's a reflective part of who I am, and other ways I feel like I'm reflecting everything that's out there, and then I, take it and absorb it, and then hopefully put it back out, rearranged in a different way. So I feel like collage has been a metaphor for my musical and artistic styles for so long. I love, collecting pieces and finding different ways for them to interact. And I think my studio is a reflection of that. It's a space where I can go and vibe and have a good time, just feel like I'm inside of that. I feel like my art is an auditory collage. It's like bringing in textures or images just in music and finding new ways to adapt them to make something new. It's kind of like a puzzle that you don't really know what it looks like yet. I'm really drawn to music from Latin America and also from Africa. I feel like those are two strong roots in my music vocabulary. I think I've always been a pretty artistic person. In my teens, I really was drawn towards visual art. Graffiti really drew me out. Colors and the history and the innovations and the forms. I realized I was just like, I don't want to do anything else but art. It was therapeutic to me. It was a way for me to release energy. Especially for a lot of graffiti artists, you find that hip-hop is always included in that. And so that's music and breakdancing and rapping, and it's a really beautiful art form. And so I wanted to find out everything I could about it. I think that led to me just being kind of a DIY type of person, especially when it comes to art. Just gives you this opportunity to make your own exploration. I've broke a lot of rules, make a lot of mistakes along the way. That's what I find really lovely about the artistic process. Those mistakes, they can find new connections. DJing's allowed me to be like, what might sound good with this, and it gives me instant access to another song that will, maybe become the backbeat behind the melody. And I try to do this process where I'm just listening to, maybe hundreds of songs trying to boil them down into little parts, and a lot of it is accidental, I'd say. I also feel that a DJ's role is a lot about perfection and routine, but musically, I love making mistakes because it allows me to see an opportunity. I feel like we can make mistakes, we can fail fast, and maybe see that those mistakes might lead to other opportunities for us to grow and to evolve.
Tacoma Light Trail is healing and transformative.
Anytime you can bring the community together, especially with art, I think it's amazing. It's so much fun to see the kids. Oh my gosh, the kids at the parade with the fire-breathing dragon, like the glee. My own glee, I love that thing. It's just amazing. It's such a cool piece.
I started the Tacoma Light Trail in 2020, basically as a response to the pandemic. It was pretty dark times, as you'll remember. Obviously physically, January is really dark in the Pacific Northwest. I personally find that light is very, very helpful at this time of year, but also, emotionally, spiritually, politically, financially, health-wise, we were all in a pretty dark place. And so I literally just started emailing and calling all the other people I knew, museums, businesses, artists, other arts organizations, the Pantages Theatre, saying, hey, I know it's a pandemic, I know you're closed, I know times are tough, but could you put a bit of light art up? And that's how it started.
My poem is about how we want to seek the light, but sometimes we may look to other places for that. And I use the metaphor of like a lighthouse, because oftentimes when I've gone to the beach, I'm like, oh wow, there's the lighthouse, and that's supposed to warn ships, and it's so amazing. The poem is kind of like we have to be our own lighthouse and seek the light within versus externally. It's just a beautiful thing to bring light and to bring healing. Light is just something that I'm personally interested in learning more about, and the healing benefits of light.
Last year I was really inspired to do more with the Tacoma Light Trail, and in August I was harvesting hops from my yard and called Rosemary and said, I'm gonna make really big hop lanterns and find me a spot. And she kind of laughed at me because it was August. I'm like, no, I gotta start now. And I did. I started collecting forms and dyeing the coffee filters by hand. Each one is hand dyed, and getting them going and hand cutting everything and assembling them. And now they have great LED lights that you can get that kind of change colors, so it gives it more life than it just being large paper lanterns. I've made a lot of projects in my life, and this is actually one of my favorites. I am just very excited with how it came out. I like the fact that people are really enjoying it.
The goal of the Light Trail was always twofold. So one was to bring light to dark times and use that light to symbolize things that would unite the community, things that we can all agree on, like hope and truth and justice and understanding and peace, things that we hopefully all want that are symbolized by light. So I feel in that sense it really does bring us together. I hope that when people see the light art and they scan the QR code that goes to the webpage that explains a little bit more about it, maybe participated in it somehow, that helps them think about a different point of view and a different experience and the things that we all can share. But the other way that it binds the community together is by lifting up diverse voices and supporting and making a vibrant downtown, because that's also a really important part of Tacoma. We've all got our neighborhoods, and they're great, but Downtown is not only beautiful architecturally and historically, but it's a kind of a third place. It's a place where everybody can come and should be made to feel welcome, that it's a place that we share. And it's taken a bit of a hit in recent years with the pandemic. And I feel that that's what the Light Trail helps to do, is to support those downtown spaces and businesses and make it a little bit more vibrant.
I am a theater maker. Primarily, I work as a director, which is perhaps where I feel like I have the strongest voice. I also do perform once in a while. I work as a dramaturg. A lot of people don't know what that is, but a dramaturg basically provides historical and cultural context for a production. I find that my dramaturgy helps me individually because it's a way that I can do research and still be a part of making theater and not have to be there every single day, which is very different than when I direct. In that role, I have to very much be there all the time and be present and have the big ideas, and you still collaborate in all of those roles. I think that's the thing about theater, is that we tell stories, but we do so by collaborating in every way. So a long time ago, I was very, very shy. I didn't really speak up for myself in any way. I just was that person that would sort of hide. And my mom thought it would be a good idea to put me in a theater class. She thought that that would sort of help me break out of my shell. And I caught that theater bug, I suppose, that you sort of catch, and I did it through high school. And I went into college thinking that I was done with theater, and I majored in psychology at first. And I switched immediately to my mother's horror, I think, at the time, because she thought that this is really great. Like, theater's a great tool for these kinds of things, but I don't want you to do that for a living. But ultimately, she was very supportive, and that's really kind of what started my sort of love and passion for making theater. As a Latina actor, I often got cast as the maid or the prostitute or things like that, and I decided that I wanted to change the narrative and I wanted to make the decisions. And then I sort of shifted and began to be that person that told the stories. Not that you don't do that as an actor, but you certainly are able to make more decisions as a director. And that's what sort of shifted that. I guess that was the catalyst. I draw inspiration from people, from humanity, from what pains us, from what brings us joy. I have found such beauty in this city in particular, and in like the students that I work with as well. There's just something so beautiful about getting so many different people together and being able to find those things, like what makes us humans, what makes us happy, what makes us cry, what makes us do anything, right? Always asking the questions of like, well, why, right? I always tell my actors and I always tell my students the same thing, right? Is good people do bad things and bad people do good things. And so like trying to understand the complexity of human nature is part of what sort of drives me. And I think everywhere that I've lived, and I've lived a lot of places, but everywhere that I live, like humanity is similar, right? Like we still have these things that bring us this joy or that inspire us. And so trying to find that in people, I think that's what I am drawn to, right? Is telling those stories. This is really fun. Like, my job is so fun. I love my job. I love what I do. And I'm really fortunate that I get to work in this art that I make, because so many theater makers, particularly in Tacoma, don't have that privilege. They work all day and then they make theater at night. And they do this for, you know, a small stipend, And actually, in the South Sound, people actually travel everywhere to do theater productions, but they're still working during the day. I am so fortunate that I get to do this for a living. I mean, that's a gift. It is a coveted position in terms of theater artist, and I happen to be so privileged to be able to do it because I have a blast. You know, I love what I do, and I love making theater, and I love telling stories. It's fun.